I'm straight up at a park right now, just randomly. I was on a morning walk and I just realized I had a lot of thoughts. So I just wanted to like document it as I do. Is it better if I take off my hat? Oh my God, it is not better if I take off my hat. It is so bright outside. Goodness gracious. But basically, I've been thinking on this walk about how like modern dating has like it's like mentally messed me up. I mean, I've always known I'm like mentally unwell, but I didn't think it was like this bad. And one thing that we talk a lot about in therapy is like having data and evidence for things. So it's like my brain can spiral in one direction, but do I have data or evidence that what I'm thinking is true and or like accurate, like will it actually happen? And I think the unfortunate part about online dating, or just dating in general, I've been like dating on and off for the past like 2 years since my last like longer term relationship. And I think what is unfortunate is like now I do have data for things happening. So it almost feels like justified, or I'm just like waiting for the shoe to drop. Dating is obviously a very like vulnerable thing. I mean, if you like literally watch just my YouTube videos, like you know that we don't even have to know each other. Like, we could literally be strangers, and you would know that I can overshare a lot, and I'm like comfortable with being vulnerable. Like when I talk online and stuff like this, or like I talk with my friends, like I feel like I can't get hurt from it because it's not transactional. But in a relationship, when you're dating and you're vulnerable, the way that you can be hurt is very tangible. Like someone can know all these vulnerable things about you and look it in the eye and then still decide to walk away. But online, it's not like that. It's just like, okay, they don't watch my videos, they unsubscribe, like it's whatever. Or amongst friendships, it's like, this will be an actual conversation. It's not just like, I don't know. I just have never thought of my friends as wanting to hurt me. But I think because I've had failed talking stages, in one sense I want to be guarded. Like on the other side of the coin, I'm like, I might as well just get it all out there, just say my piece, and then the guy can decide if he likes me or not. Because if I say all this stuff straight out the gate, he knows all this about me because I've like shared this, you know, in a time appropriate setting. It's not like just trauma dumping on the first date. And then he can make an informed decision if he wants to be with me or not. And I can do the same with him. I think vulnerability breeds vulnerability. So I do my best on dates to be like open and like inquisitive and open-minded and receptive to what people have to say and not just assume the worst of them. And I think it's worked out pretty well. Like everyone I've met is nice. I don't feel any negative emotions, strong negative emotions toward like anyone that I've ever been on a date with. Okay, like maybe one. I can think of one. Because I was just like annoyed the whole date. But anyway, there was no date 2, so it's fine. I've been broken up over text a couple times. Once was like an actual relationship, and I straight up had to ask. I have the screenshot of it still. I had to be like, are you breaking up with me? And he said, yeah, I guess. But this was also like early college, so we didn't really have the emotional maturity we do now, I'd like to think. And then I've also gotten like the,
oh, hey, I just like don't think this is gonna work
kind of text from like people I've talked to, which is fine. And I never thought that like a guy would like take me on a date to end things. That had never crossed my mind before. But because it happened once, now it's like a fear of mine that just because a guy like shows interest in me and like actively wants to see me, makes conversation with me and asks good questions, like that doesn't even equate that he's interested in me, because I've experienced that time and time again, only for them to end things. Basically, recently I went on a date and I had thought that he wanted to end things on the date because I gave him 2 outs. I was like, oh, like 2 separate times. I was like, oh, we don't have to meet up. If you can't, if you don't want to, like if you're too tired. In truth, I was too tired. I was so exhausted. Like during dinner, I almost fell asleep just sitting there because I was so, like not him. It was just, I had exhausted myself with social plans this week, but I did really want to see him. So I was like, okay, I'll just like, I'll still go. But then I was like, maybe he'll cancel. But he didn't. I gave him 2 outs and he didn't cancel. So I was like, okay. It's like weird that he is like persistent on seeing me. And so in my head, that equated to he wants to end things. This is the exact data that I'm gathering from the last time this happened. He was persistent on seeing me, and we had made plans, and it was like a whole thing. This was like the other guy. He was very nice to me on that date and would like hold my hand and hold my bag for me, and I think at one point he like kissed me on the cheek, like so you can imagine my surprise at the end of the night when he ended things. I was like, oh, okay. Okay, so like why did we do all of this? Like why did we just spend like 4 hours together just for you to end things? Like this could have been an email. That was weird. And I didn't really think much of that like situation until I went on this date recently, and I was like, oh, he probably just wants to see me because he wants to end things, and it's easier if we just meet up now so he doesn't have to draw it out and do it later on. So just like kill it while it's still fresh. So I was like, great. Okay, so like I feel a lot of anxiety going into this, obviously, because in my head he's gonna end things. This whole day I'm just like waiting for the shoe to drop. We do one thing, and then he's like, do you want to get dinner? And then I was like, okay. So we get dinner, and then he's like, do you want to get dessert? And I was like, okay. And I was like, why is he asking me to do all this? Like, doesn't he want to leave? I thought he doesn't want to spend time with me. But it's, of course, all in my head. Like, I'm telling all of this to myself. At the end of the night, we were talking, and I had brought this up. I was like, oh, I had actually thought you wanted to end things on this date. I think he was like, am I like giving you mixed signals? Like, I don't know, I feel like I'm being pretty clear. And I was like, no, I think it's just that like I have experienced, I'm like getting deja vu of like similar dates happening and like situations happening and conversations being had and actions being performed that like in my head it all equates to he doesn't actually like me and he wants to end things. I was like, it would actually be crazy if I said all this and you actually did end things with me tonight. That didn't happen. I was previously more like attachment style wise, like more secure in my relationships. But after, you know, being vulnerable and putting myself out there in the dating world, I got hurt, obviously, as one does with modern dating or dating in general, not even just in the 21st century. Now I'm like more anxious attached, because I have all these data points of people leaving and people not wanting to be with me and feeling like I'm the root of the issue. Like in therapy, she likes to ask if I have evidence. And this time I'm like, yeah, I literally do have evidence that like no one wants to be with me. And I don't know what's wrong because I like who I am as a person and I don't want to change for somebody. But like, how come nobody likes me? In a sense, like very, very, very boiled down. Just like, how come nobody wants to stay? How come nobody wants to try? Aside from being like a flight risk because I was traveling a lot the past 2 years, like that was a whole thing. Like, why was I even trying to date? But I'm just someone who's like always willing to try. I'm a very you don't know until you try kind of person. And same with relationships. I'm like always willing to go out on a limb, even if it means that I know I'm going to get hurt later on. But I'm like, I just want to see it through just so I can have data that this isn't going to work. And then it doesn't work. And I'm like, how could this have ever happened? It's like the flags were literally right there in front of you. Like it was all red. It's just like the whole situation was just like not good from the start. Like in what world did you see this working? So I was like pretty reluctant to like try dating again this year, but it was just one of my goals. I was like, if I'm like not ashamed anymore to say that I want to be in a relationship. Like I've had my single independent era and I loved that. I still enjoy being single. This societal expectation for women to like embrace singlehood. Like it's so important to be single. But I think also even in the church context, not to bring faith in, but in the church context, like women are so encouraged to like, you know, find joy in their singlehood and like this season of singleness, but then there aren't a lot of resources for women that are single. Like all the communities are for married women. So like single people are just out here fending for themselves, fighting for their lives, with everyone telling them like,
oh, enjoy it. Like it's such a good time period of your life. Like you learn so much about yourself. Like, oh, like I miss when I was single. Like
dumb stuff like that. It just makes me feel like I'm not allowed to want to be in a relationship because I should cherish the singleness that I have. If I'm single for the next 5 years, like I'm genuinely okay with that. But I also don't want to not allow myself to say the words out loud that like I want to be in a relationship. Like I want to be in love. I want partnership. I want someone to call home. Like, I want that, and there's no shame in that. And I think in the context of just like society, and then also in the religious spaces and Christian spaces, it's like, it's almost like shameful. I don't know how to word it otherwise, because shameful feels like so sharp of a word to describe it, but it just feels like embarrassing to admit that you want to be in a relationship. It's like you're seen as needy or desperate, or you're not content with yourself. But I'm like very content with myself. Like, I like who I am, and I don't feel embarrassed at the way that I care and the way that I love and the way that I'm vulnerable. Like, that's just who I am. And if I'm like talking to someone who doesn't see that in me and they don't like these aspects about me, it just boils down to incompatibility, and like, that's fine. I think I've just gotten tired of this narrative that I've built for myself that like I'm stronger if I'm single. Like, I have to just be single and be content in that in order to be like a strong, independent woman. But I think you can be a strong, independent woman in a relationship still. It's not like mutually exclusive. Like, you can have a partner, but then still build a very solid life for yourself, and not like the life that I've built only exists because of my partner. Like, I feel like I have a lot of independence and autonomy in that, the way that I've constructed my life. I mean, it's like, it's not much right now, but yeah, I just don't think that everything has to be like dependent on a relationship, but I also don't think that it's shameful or wrong to admit that you want to be in a relationship. So that's just where I'm at. And like, that's why I got back on dating apps earlier this month, just because I was like, you know what, that dog is going off. So I think I'm just like trying to be more open in my like dating experiences and like be vulnerable and say yes to things. This guy was like, I told him, I've been on dating apps for 2 years now, like on and off, but you're like the second person I've gone on a date with. And he was like, that's crazy. I just find reasons to say no. I just find reasons to like think that it's not going to work out and say no for them. And I just don't give it a try. I don't give it a chance. So this year I'm trying to like be more open-minded and give things a chance, dating-wise, and just see where that takes me. Even though it's scary. And I think the worst part is now that I have data of like things not working out, it's just making me more anxious attached in these relationships, because it's like, oh, well, if he does this, that means this, because that happened twice already. If he doesn't do this, then that means this, because that happened 3 times already. So now that I have all this extra data, I'm like, this is actually screwing me up more. I'm doing this insane mathematical equation out here when maybe it should just be like, how does this person make me feel? Do I like who I am when I'm with them? Do I like them as a person? Do I see our lifestyles as compatible? Like, maybe it's not like, oh, he didn't text me today. Like, maybe you just like relax, you know? There's this Substack article that I really like from this girl. I think her username is Postcards by Elle. And I think one of my top 5 of her essays is the exact title, but it's like, just chill, or thanks, eat glass. Just like the inability to be nonchalant and to not care. And she talks about it in the context of dating too, but also in day-to-day life. Just this desire of like modern culture to like be relaxed and be chill about everything, when I've just never been that kind of person. When it's the beginning talking stages, my brain is in overdrive. I'm just like thinking all the time about like all these data points that I've collected and what it means, and like what it means for the relationship, and how that reflects on me as a person, when that's just not the case. I'm straight up gonna get like sunburned sitting here, because like COVID made me so sensitive to sun, because I was like just indoors for like a whole entire year, that now when I'm in sun without sunscreen, I get sunburned. It's so embarrassing. I used to not be like this. My ancestors are quaking right now. They're so embarrassed. But yeah, I feel like that's pretty much all that I wanted to say. I mean, I have so many thoughts on this, and like, I originally wasn't going to say anything about dating on my YouTube, because like I frankly don't know where this is going, like with this person, but it just feels right for right now to talk about. It just feels like I need to publicly get this off my chest. It's the publicly for me. Like, I can't do it privately. Like, it has to be known. I like forget that YouTube, like, people can just find this and like people can just like watch it. Like, a stranger from Australia can see this, and I won't know. And we will never meet, you know? It's kind of crazy. but I think that's what I like about the deep dark web, the internet. Like this video is like just one speck of sand, one grain of sand in the grand scheme of every park and national park and beach there is out there and all the sand in the universe. It's just like one voice talking. So who really cares, you know? But that's how I've been feeling about dating, and how I feel like it's made me more mentally unstable. These guys have messed me up mentally, and I wasn't like this before, and it makes me sad. It makes me sad to think back on like who I used to be before I'd met these guys. Not that I was naive, but in some ways I was, because I thought that it would be easier. I'm someone who like falls very quickly, which is dangerous, obviously. The whole concept of like guarding your heart, like that has never been me. I straight up don't know how to do that. And that's what makes dating scary for me, being so vulnerable and then knowing that there's a really high chance that they won't like me because the data has skewed that way. So all this talk about data, I wonder how many times I've said that word. I keep looking around because there's like noises. Sorry, I feel like a little anxious cat. It's like time to go home and like eat breakfast. It's like noon. I have done nothing yet today except for this. So thanks for watching, and to the guy that I'm seeing that I just talked about, I hope you didn't watch this video. If you do, you have a moral obligation to text me and confirm that you've watched it, and you need to trade a vulnerable piece of yourself for this new information that you've acquired about me. Thanks again for being here and listening to my park ramble filmed on iPhone. And Mike, okay, there's literal kids coming now. I need to leave. I'm a grown adult in the playground. Listen to me walk across this bridge. Insane. There's sand in my shoes as an adult on a Monday morning because I'm unemployed.